friends, Jewel back with another super cool astrology video. And I wanted to talk about the synastry aspect of the moon square to Saturn. When we get this, what happens, when we get this in chart comparison. So synastry is when we put two charts side by side or on top of each other, and we can see the connections between each person's planets, and it tells us how they bounce off of each other, how they relate to each other. So the moon is the very subjective part of somebody. It's their feeling nature. It is not a rational part of us. It is the irrational part of our feeling self. So Mercury is like the rational brain, the moon is the irrational, emotional brain. And it is our habit patterns, it is our needs, what we consider to be our needs, and what makes us feel settled, secure, safe. That's why we associate it with needs. And it is the part of us that's up and down, ebbs and flows. So when we want to settle that, what we do is shown by our moon. The aspects to it, the sign it's in the house, all that good stuff. So Saturn is the part of us that is very much motivated towards long-term outcomes, long-term goals. Our expectations about what we should have, what we should do, naturally is the ruler of the 10th house of career and of where we're going. So it's very much where we are just pointing north, and that's where we're headed. And so and it's also structure, limitation, tradition, not wanting to step outside the box. It wants to do things safe. And so when these two parts of two people meet in a square aspect, we see some conflict between the feelings of one person and the goals and the shoulds and the long-term outlook of the other person, the Saturn person. So the Saturn person is very much prone to seeing the feelings and the needs and the unconscious emotional responses of the moon person as kind of frivolous or silly or not serious. And because this real stable, judgy, sure part of somebody is in direct friction with the unstable, emotional, needy part of somebody else. And so there is going to be some issues in how they perceive each other, because we have two people that have they're bouncing off of each other in a very bizarre way here when it comes to understanding the needs and motivations. So usually the moon person feels very unsatisfied with how their feelings are reacted to, how their feelings are perceived by the Saturn person, how they're judged or viewed. Because Saturn is the judge. It's the part of us that wants to bring down the hammer, because we know what's best and what's right and la 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 la. Saturn can be really annoying. So the moon person can really shut down over time as they're interacting in this kind of square, because they can feel like their feelings are judged. They can't feel open. They feel like if they're honest or if they show their need, then they're going to be told, well, it should be this, or you shouldn't feel that way. We get that a lot when we have Saturn moon aspects in Synastry. We get that a lot, where the Saturn person is, well, I hear you, I hear that you feel like that, but you shouldn't feel like that. You should la 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 la. And there is no should. There is no should, Saturn person. The moon person feels how they feel. They don't need any justification for it, and they don't need to feel differently. They feel how they feel. Shut up. So we have to come to a place where the moon person realizes that the Saturn person has some very definitive ideas about what their reactions are. And the Saturn person has to come to an understanding that the moon person is always going to come across as immature to them. It's not that either one of us are this way. We are striking each other this way because this is how we're seeing each other on the wheel. So we have to have some real understanding here. The Saturn person has to back off. They have to try to be supportive because Saturn is a supportive part of us. It is. It does have that element to it. It wants to support, actually, and it thinks it's doing that with its reaction of, oh, you should do this or you should do that, or it's doing this weird fixing kind of thing. The moon wants to be heard. It wants to be understood. It wants to be sympathized with. Do it. You can't respond to the moon person with this, or with suggestions, or with a better way, or with criticism. They will shut you out over time because they will come to distrust you. So the moon person has to understand that they have to be more reasonable in their reactions if they want the Saturn person to respond to them in a way that they don't feel like the moon person has kind of gone a little bit off the deep end. Because when they get, if the moon person is, flying off the handle too much, then the Saturn person comes in and severely reacts to that. So if we can both kind of come at this, if we can both, kind of curb our reactions and our understanding can get greater, then the moon person can learn to maybe count to 10 before they react, and understand that that's going to put them in a better position with the Saturn person. And the Saturn person needs to understand that the moon person is probably always going to be seen as a little bit, and that's just how that is going to be. And they can't come from a place of judging that or putting any kind of limitations on the emotional reactions or the behaviors of the moon person. So you would think this one would actually keep a relationship from forming, and a lot of times it does, but I actually see this in Synastry in married people's charts that have been together quite a while pretty often. And even more common is the composite aspect of moon square to Saturn. Not uncommon. It is something that typically lands people up in the counselor's office, though. It creates a certain amount of bond between two people, all aspects from moon to Saturn. The Saturn person tends to want to take the moon person under their wing, and the moon person tends to respect and appreciate the guidance and the care and the assets that the Saturn person can bring into the relationship. So moon Saturn aspects are common. Even hard aspects are common in composite and synastry charts of couples. Sometimes they do keep relationships from forming. But if you have a lot of other commonalities, you have a lot of things that are compatible, if you have your sexual and social planets in good aspect to each other, that can actually put you in a position where this aspect will not keep you from getting together. It will show up over time. Because Saturn aspects don't start to come out until we have made things official. You don't see our Saturn in the dating phase. You don't see our Saturn in the infatuation phase. It's only when things become solid, when they start to become regular, when they become committed, that's when we see Saturn issues showing up. And a lot of times, the moon person feels that they are already in it. So it's hard when this one shows up to back out, because the moon person already feels that there's a certain amount of glue that they have formed to this part of the Saturn person. And then the Saturn person starts getting crabby and starts like judging their reactions, or, well, you should have done that, or can't you calm down? And the moon person starts backing off, or sometimes it makes them cry more. So it's an interesting aspect. It's not uncommon, but it does make marriage therapists a lot of money. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe to my channel. You can find me on the internet at truthandaspectastrology.com, and on Facebook at Truth and Aspect Astrology, and also on Instagram. And I'll be back super soon with some super cool videos. Bye-bye.